the quarterback position. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, well, you let the guys battle it out and, they'll just get someone in the spring when the portal opens. And transfer portal finally opens here on Tuesday, April 16th. It'll be open until April 30th. And again, you could add guys after that. It's just you have to be in the portal. But, we talked about this a little bit last week, but when you look at what might be out there for them, I don't know that there's going to be this, when you look at the transfer portal, I don't know if there's going to be anything that's more than a marginal upgrade to the room that they have right now. I really do think the more and more we get, it's become more and more apparent and this is where, again, you'd take this trade-off 10 out of 10 times, but by playing football into the early stages of January, you missed the window that a lot of these other programs had. And then, of course, JJ McCarthy had a decision to make. So it kind of leads you where I want to start by saying this. I think there can be a quarterback that gets you to 9-10 wins on this roster already. But to a certain extent, it does kind of feel like when you look at how they've recruited quarterbacks the last few years, taking Jaden Davis out of it, because I think he's kind of a non-factor this year, at least in terms of being a viable option to start. It kind of feels like when you look at what's come before Davis, what you see on the roster right now is kind of, I don't want to sound too harsh, but the Bills kind of come and due on it, right? Because I don't know that there is a natural successor there, but what do you guys feel about where we're at with this quarterback situation?
Yeah, you hope that there's a guy out there who's in a battle right now, and maybe like a Jake Rudock, and I've said this many times at Iowa, okay, it looks like he's getting passed over, and he's still a good quarterback, so he can help you, and he can be the guy. And I think you're going to see that in a lot of quarterback rooms. Now, there are going to be two things there, right? You're going to have other schools telling these guys, hey, you're still in a battle, and we're going to go into fall, and it's going to be one of you two guys, and you both have a great shot, even if it's not true, right? And I think Jim Harbaugh did that at times where he's like, okay, we're going to go into spring or into fall. And I think most of the time it was true, though. For example, Cade McNamara was ahead of JJ McCarthy coming out of spring, and he was ahead of him through a good portion of the fall until JJ came out and took it in the last couple of weeks of camp there, and then in that Hawaii game. So, but you have to hope, guys, in my opinion, because I just don't think there's a championship level quarterback on this roster, and I hope I'm wrong. It wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong, but to me, and what I wrote the other day is it's not a luxury to have a very good quarterback at Michigan. It's a necessity. And if you look at the top quarterbacks, the top programs throughout the country, it's very rare that you don't have a guy who is really, really good, right? Alabama, even Jalen Milroe became a good quarterback by the end of the year, even though he started off and was a little bit shaky. So to me, they've kind of been left in a bit of a quandary here, because now if you go out and get another quarterback, does that mean all of your other quarterbacks are going to hit the portal as well? It's dicey. So there have been rumblings about Kyle McCord, and like, will he get back in the portal, and would he come to Michigan type of thing? I don't see that. And I don't think he's the answer. I felt watching his press conferences before the Michigan game last year that this isn't a kid that's going to be able to step up in that Michigan game and beat Michigan at Michigan. Now, he had a couple bad passes there that prevented him from doing that. So, who knows if it's a realistic option anyway, but to me, it's got to be somebody that is going to be the guy. So I'm with you in that respect, Anthony. Is that guy out there? I guess we're going to have to wait and find out.
Yeah, and I think with the craziness that's going to ensue over the next couple of weeks, I mean, there are going to be some pretty good options that either come available and then you reach out, or that you kind of know are going to come available. And I mean, Kyle McCord went to Syracuse to start, right? But are there going to be guys like that go back in or go in for the first time? Guys like, that even may be slated to start at their school that have heard, hey, Michigan may, be interested if you entered the portal, and they realize that Michigan's a better school for them or program in general. So that could happen as well. I'm just more curious than anything to see who goes in, who they target, that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to watch. You look around the country, like I agree, Chris. I think that coaches are doing this and, kind of going to play this up where you're in more of a battle than maybe you even are. I heard from somebody who was at Alabama practice over the last few weeks that Milroe may not even be the best quarterback on that team. So there are going to be guys pushing, and let's say they say, oh, we're sticking with Milroe. This is just one example. I mean, this is, happens around the country. And and then somebody else behind him enters the portal who may actually end up being better than the other guy. And Rudock, probably not better overall than CJ Beathard when he left, but it was pretty comparable, and the talent around him at Michigan, I think, suited him pretty well. And he had a great year in 2015. So yeah, we may see a Alex Malzone versus Shane Morris type of battle on Saturday. But it doesn't necessarily mean those are the only guys that are going to be on the roster. I'm predicting a low-scoring game. I know we'll get to it in a little bit, but I'm predicting 10-3 or something like that, 10-7. That'd be my prediction.
Does Malzone have any eligibility left?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Maybe. I mean, you have guys out there now that are. There's a tight end at Miami that's what, it's his 9th year in college or something like that. I don't know how that math works, but yeah, and I think it's interesting when you bring up the point of some of these coaches across the country who are maybe letting guys, leaving the door open for other guys to still be in a battle, so you maintain the balance or the chemistry of the quarterback room, whatever it is. I think that probably applies more to a place like USC or Ohio State, who also have 5 guys that are competing for position, but a couple of them are 5-star recruits, and you've got one that the collective paid a bunch to transfer in and all those types of things. So it's a little bit different of a situation. I mean, to me, if there's a 1-year stopgap available, I'm totally cool with that. From their perspective, this is a quarterback room that's filled out by a senior who was a former walk-on in Davis Warren, a 7th-year guy in Jack Tuttle, and then 2 juniors in Alex Orji and Jaden Denegal, where, if the light doesn't come on now, I don't know that it is for them. So, outside of Jaden Davis, who we think is more of the longer-term play, if one of those guys hits the portal because you add a 1-year stopgap that's going to give this team the best chance to win a national title or compete for a national title, I do it. And I have 0 issues with that. So from that perspective, I mean, right now, Chris, it sounds like if we're just going by what's at the top of the depth chart right now, it sounds like if there was a game, if this was Fresno State on Saturday instead of Team Maize versus Team Blue, kind of seems like Alex Orji would be the guy. Is that what we're led to believe right now?
Yeah, 100%. And they're hopeful that he can be a Jalen Milroe type, right, is exactly what they're saying. So, and when you're hoping to be a Jalen Milroe type, it means he's got a long way to go still as a passer. We know what he is as an athlete, right? I think he's got better instincts, especially running than, for example, a Joe Milton, right? And everybody wants to make comparisons, the size and everything else. But, Joe Milton may well have been a better passer. And, it's kind of scary to me. And Joe Milton, you're right. Thrower. Yeah. And that became, and Joe got better to his credit, right? He's going to be a 6th round guy, maybe. So, but he was never that guy where you thought, okay, this is the guy that's going to lead us to a Big Ten championship. At least I never got that impression. And the fact that, they basically made that decision in a spring, way back under with Josh Gaddis, we can talk about, that's a completely different topic, but I don't want him to do that this time. I think you've got too good a defense here and you don't want to waste it, right? You've got too many good other pieces. You've got good running backs. I think you've got an elite tight end. You've got solid receivers that I think a couple of them can be really good. Still need to go out to the portal and get one. And I think that's what their plan is, if they can. And then a kicker. But to me, this is the biggest piece, fellas. All you got to do is have a good piece there. And I think you've got a Big Ten contender. I really do, because that defense is so good. And as long as they stay healthy, depth is going to be an issue as well. You're certainly never going to, I don't think you're ever going to have the depth that you had on that national championship team again. That was unbelievable. And I'm just feel fortunate to have been able to see it. But you can still compete for a title, fellas. You can still go down there with a good quarterback and beat Ohio State and Columbus with that defense. We've seen it if you're more physical, which they have been the last 3 years. So we'll see. But I am anxious to see how Orji plays on Saturday. I hope they make him live a little bit, and I hope they let him throw quite a bit so we see what they have out there.
Yeah, Orji is interesting. Could he be a Jalen Milroe type, lose to Texas in game 2, come back, lead his team to the playoff? But then you even think of it in like this comparison, and it actually is one that I talked to Alex Orji about before the national championship game, and he said that Milroe was a guy he watched throughout last season, not just leading up to the Rose Bowl. So it's definitely a comparison that's worthy of being examined. But he talked about, or when you look at Alex Orji to Jalen Milroe comparison, the path Michigan has back towards competing for a national championship this year is going to be through, more tough games. Like you're not going to get Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. If you get there, you have to go at Ohio State, you play Oregon, you play Texas, you go at Washington. Like you're going to be in some of those games like a Michigan, Alabama of last year. Not saying that either team are going to be that good, but where you look down one side and JJ McCarthy could make all the plays when he had to in that game. Jalen Milroe, they didn't really trust him on 3rd and 8. They didn't throw much in those downs when you needed to get, a first down and keep the offense on the field. They made plays, but it just felt like Alabama was kind of playing a little bit with at least maybe half a hand tied behind their back with Jalen Milroe compared to what Michigan had in JJ McCarthy. Leads to another discussion of, well, no one's going to be JJ McCarthy. So it's a tough thing to think through before a year. I do think Alex Orji has potential. He does something really well, and that's running the football. And there's something to be said about that. Like he has an element to his game that is really strong, and he's obviously improved as a passer. I mean, his teammates have been pretty adamant about that. So it'll just be kind of interesting. I agree. I'm excited to see what he does on Saturday, but also, would think that maybe they give some other guys a look here in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Something last point on the quarterback position. I think that what's kind of maddening when you listen to the national discussion about JJ McCarthy as an NFL draft prospect is they make it sound like he was running the offense at a service academy. And then, they didn't trust him to throw. They didn't give him the opportunity to throw. And Michigan's conservative and all that. And I think we know that from what we watched with him, yes, you can get by on being a game manager at Michigan. We've seen Cade McNamara do it. We've seen Wilton Spate do it. We've seen other guys kind of do that in the past. But, Chris, you're going back to your original point, like the level of play that you got out of JJ McCarthy helped take Michigan to the next level and not the other way around. So, being able to make, the criteria that they lay out, being able to make every throw in the playbook, being able to move the chains, being able to convert 3rd downs, lead scoring drives.
Protect the ball, right? More than anything, protect
football.
The ball. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're able to do all those things, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape next year. And the way that Ohio State is playing, because again, as fun as it would be to come out guns blazing in week 2 and knock off Texas, you want to be best later in the year, in October, in November. And I really do think the way that Ohio State kind of wants to play ball this year, or the way they're building themselves, might lend it to being in a little more of a rock fight with them than you have been in the past. And I think that could, that could not favor Michigan, but when it comes to having a bit of a drop off in quarterback play, when you're talking about having more of a smash mouth style of offense with a quarterback that's also more of a threat to run the ball, we'll see. It's going to look different, but I still think that they might have something there.